life on the farm and the relationships between this and the way we live in our strange little haphazard zone universe. So thank you for joining. Okay, welcome back. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, this guy's whack. Lance Reynard's Haphazard Universe here once again. Gotta keep rolling. And the thing is that I do. Can't, Rolling Stone gathers no moss, and thank the Lord I've got no moss on me. And I am taking off out of here in about 48 hours.
A 3-hour tour.
Today's production is going to be about, once again, hemp and cannabis and some production differences you might not think about. But in all of my upcoming and future productions, I'm going to be moving along. I'm going to be dealing with what you've seen already. I will not become redundant. I will not overly repeat myself. I have an aversion to that. So, taking off in about 48 hours, I wanted to start this particular video with a little bit of uplifting, happy time music and information. Let's get down to it. Hello once again. Welcome back to another haphazard recording. In today's production, I'm going to talk about a wide variety of details, everything in the universe. But in fact, the most important part, what I'll be talking about today, is how all of this affects all of us. So, in the processing of details, in the access of details, in observing details, if this is a part of your life already, what do you think about these? Right. So let's get into this, and as the background song says, Alvin Lee. I'm not going to leave it up to anybody else. We're going to take over. Going to handle this, and I'm going to show you how. So thanks for joining today's haphazard production. Let's get on with it. Now I've noticed that every once in a while you just got to kick back and relax and take a look at some interesting and spiritually motivating and inspiring comments and details. This particular link I will leave up, pardon the jumping. I'm doing all this live, of course, and don't really edit that much, except for sections and segments, which will eventually turn out to be hours worth of work. But this is Asha Logos in putting up cool comments, inspirational things for us to think about, and the individual that put it out, like in this case Nietzsche, saying growth and wisdom may be exactly measured by a decrease in bitterness. And so something to be considered, and this is cool for comments and quotes, and it's basically just background music with Aristotle and Nietzsche and different people quoting different things. Now here I'm just going to go into my liked videos, because for me to try to track down my most recent this is Dennis Branham, and he does a great job with his cat. Check him out. I'll leave a link to his cat video in my description, without the swirling and twirling doohickey that's just so annoying. And so I will cut after this comes in. Now, if I pause this video, I just wanted to stop and show a virtual size relation difference, and not to be condescending in any way. This goes from day one to the harvest, and she's picking up her harvest here, and we just wanted to do a quick relative comparison between types of product, sizes of the product, and then your eventual output when you look at the relationship between the sizes of these individual units in comparison to the ones that I was just showing in, say, for instance, this particular image here. And of course, there's a genetic difference, but there's also a methodology difference, which I will be showing. Now, part of today's essay is the different reasons for different people in the manufacturing industry in concerning hemp. I am going to reflect a bit of this video from Farming Smarter, and I will leave the link in my description, but it does show the very varied viewpoints and levels of knowledge that each aspect and avenue, Anyway, we each have different avenues of knowledge and interest. I want to show a little bit of this person's
I use
lecture.
It all the time. I use it for cooking.
Let me just back up a
like
little
that.
bit
Why am I
here.
excited about growing pulses? Because
So he's talking
why do we
about
grow hemp? I got a little bit existential at first, and
Why?
I really got back to why do we care about growing anything? Because I don't have a background in ag. I grew up in the city, but what excites me about these things is just their uses and possibilities. So why am I excited about something like growing canola? Well, I use canola all the time. I use it for cooking and stuff like that. Why am I excited about growing pulses? Because I love to eat pulses because they taste delicious when you cook them with a little bit of bacon. Why am I excited about wheats? I love baking and bread and everything about it, and ditto for beer. So when I thought about why am I excited about growing hemp, well, hemp has a really amazing industry, and it's one of the most amazing kind of industries that there is because there's so many applications. It's not limited to a very specific niche like a lot of crops. So down on the bottom right, that's where most of the industry's focused now. That's on the grain market, the hemp hearts, the health foods. I use that Dr. Bronner's stuff. There's some granola bars and hemp oils and lotions and things like that. But up in the industrial side, I'm pretty excited. I'm building a detached garage at my house. I was hoping to build it out of hempcrete, which is probably not ever going to happen. But different industrial applications that are slowly making their way to common industry. So it'll be really interesting once that happens. And then on the left side, something that's really kind of important and speaks to kind of Joe's presentation this morning. There's a lot of misinformation on chemicals and how they're used. So especially with the legalization of recreational marijuana in Canada Day next year, it's going to be really important to kind of distinguish these things, especially for people who don't understand. So if anybody asks you about this, it's really important to kind of know, recreational marijuana's got a THC content 10 to 30%, and that's a psychoactive kind of property. Our industrial hemp that we do, it's all below, I think, 0.03%. But it's got a higher CBD content, and that's a consequence of them breeding that THC out. Something's got to kind of come in and take its place. So a lot of that's happened with CBD, and there's a little picture I took in the field there. You can see the crystals, and I think the black market value for that is like just astronomical, $10,000 an ounce or something like that. But I'm just making that number up. But it's really important to distinguish the two. So I found this off leafscience.com. And this is probably the worst place to find it. Don't tell Joe. But the idea and the concept that I wanted to share was basically they bind differently, and it's just showing you that CBD has a different mechanism of working, and that's the whole reason behind why they think it affects people differently. So it's I actually find out every time I mention it. Somebody new I know is using CBD to treat chronic illness, chronic pain, chronic disease, something like that, and it's actually becoming really quite common. So it'll be interesting to see just how mainstream that becomes and what kind of scientific and medical research we can do when it comes to CBD. And in case I haven't made the distinction between the two clear, I've got this picture of our summer crew out in the field here. This is THC, being goofy, a little crazy, whatever. And then this is CBD, the calming, relaxation, kind of state. So I thought those were good. Like I said, it's really easy to find the misinformation and conspiracies and stuff like that with hemp, so you just have to be careful if you're looking something up online. Really be careful where you find it from. Most of the data and the facts and the background stuff that I found came from like Hemp Trade Alliance, specialists in a province like Yan, different folks like that who really know what they're talking about, not probably Leaf Science or something like that. So to start off, when we started this agronomy project, we had to ask, what do we know about growing hemp? Because this was a brand new endeavor for all of us at Farming Smarter. So We knew that it needed to be seeded shallow, sensitive to compaction and crusting, stuff like that. We knew there was going to be limited herbicides, but hopefully we were told we weren't going to need them, although we had pretty much never grown crops without herbicides. Cultivation was going to be nice, both for organic weed control and seedbed prep, so that's a practice that we definitely did. We were going to have to pick the right cultivars, and then we just told some fun facts. This is some college students we had into thresh biomass. Hemp fiber is very strong. It was going to cause us problems with our combine, problems cutting through it with our size and sickles. And we were also told that not to worry about it. We can seed it after all the rest of our research crops. So that was kind of a nice relief to know we could get the rush of everything else over with and then worry about the hemp later. So we had 3 different agronomy trials that we ran. We've got a seeding date trial, a variety trial, and a hemp fertility trial. And I'm going to start giving you some info on the variety trial. Just so you know, our background fertility was about 50 to 100 pounds an acre at N. To kind of maximize things, we added 100 pounds per acre N and threw down 40 pounds per acre of FOS just to keep it from being limiting. So the conventional wisdom with hemp varieties are that they're going to be very regionally specific, which we found big differences between the Sarda, Vegreville, and Lethbridge varieties. They're going to be monoecious or dioecious, meaning there's going to be a separate female and male plant, or they're going to have the male-female parts on the exact same plant, which is important for flowering. And then they're going to fall into a couple really important categories. So the first one is grain, and a staple of that I'm going to talk about throughout the presentation is finola. And that's the kind of the one that looks kind of ugly there. All the friends and family would be like, what is that crop that's just kind of like, I don't know what it is, and it's kind of goofy and wavy, and it's probably because it was a hemp field. A dual purpose variety, this X59, is really characteristic, kind of UFO shaped head on it, and it's really easy to pick out of the crowd. This one's kind of got the best of both worlds, pretty decent biomass, but also a good grain yield. And then this is our Salacia, our biomass variety. I mean, it's not that drastic, but there's a picture of Ken earlier in the season. It's towering, and it does pose some challenges for us. So if you choose the wrong variety, this is what happens. We got it spun up around our combine a whole bunch of times with the Salacia, and it just kind of goes to show you the difficulty. All the other varieties we were able to harvest with our new plot combine, but the Salacia caused problems, and we ended up actually changing the protocol throughout the project. So I thought I'd start by just explaining this concept of harvest index. What it is basically your seed yield divided by your total biomass, and that gives you a ratio of how much proportion you have seed yield. And why that's important is a lot of other crops have been bred to have a really high harvest index, meaning most of the nutrients and most of the things going into the crop are actually going to produce a seed yield as opposed to producing other things you may not need. Well, in the case of hemp, you may actually want a low harvest index if you're growing it for fiber, but in our cases, most of it's for grain, so it'd be better if you can get a higher harvest index. So we found the harvest index to be 0.27, although it varied greatly depending on a number of factors that we'll get into here. So what this is the yields of our entire variety trial. That doesn't show up very good, but I'm just going to focus on the 3 colorful ones anyways. So the finola, you'll see the very top lighter colored portion is the fiber biomass, and the lower darker colored portion is the seed yield. So I just combine them to give you can compare the varieties for total biomass as well as the 2 individuals. So you'll see I put the harvest index up there. Finola is 0.37, that was our highest harvest index for hemp, and that's because it's got the lowest tonnage for fiber, and that makes it really good to combine, and we didn't have any problems harvesting it. And something like Salacia's got a harvest index of 0.18. So to zoom in on that bottom section now, the darker colored portion will give us just our grain yield. So that's what we did here, and we found that actually despite all the differences in these hemp varieties, when we averaged them over our 3 site years in Lethbridge, they weren't as different as we expected to find. So there is a few significant differences. I think the CFX2, CRS1, and X59, maybe Grandma 2 were slightly different than some of the lower ones. But I wouldn't use this as the sheer indicator of variety performance. So if you're going to grow hemp right away next year, don't look at this and go, okay, I'm not going to grow finola. Because you'll see we kind of got this strange thing in some other trials where the finola did better than the Salacia or equal to the X59. So a few explanations for why this variety trial maybe wasn't the best predictor. And then what we did was I just combined 2015, 16, 17. So you can see 2015 was a pretty good growing year, and 2016 was maybe our best yields. 2017, all the varieties were just lower. Despite what we did, we kept them under irrigation, we kept the fertility high, but they didn't grow as well as we were hoping.
Okay, you've got 2015, 2016, 2017. Which yield would you prefer? From what you've heard, you've got a grain yield and you've got a fiber yield, and the differences were just shown. And this looks like a great video to get fundamental details of how things are looked at, how the information is looked at, for somebody like me to cure my own particular ignorance, and the areas I'm not familiar with are vast and various, and this is a part of it right here. And so as I go through the learning process and come across this information, I might as well convey that which has some vitality to people, especially who are about to get into the industry. And in what way, I can't predict, but I can show you different avenues of the information and different links to those avenues, and have you continue on by just clicking on one of the links below this video. And so wanted to get that out of the way, and not to totally mirror this person's video.
Cents per pound, given the yields that we got, or sorry, this is before yield, 77 cents per pound, how many kgs per hectare, how many bushels per acre increase would we need in our yield to justify that additional fertilizer? And it turned out to be surprisingly low. 1.8 bushels per acre is all we needed to justify adding that additional hemp to get the net benefit of adding the fertilizer.
Okay, so the equations and how the equations are done against different costs versus, as he mentioned, the fertilizers to be added in relation to what value, what increase. And so I find this fascinating. I would suggest going to this particular video, and if you're interested in the numbers and the information.
So
but I once again will not totally mirror. I will display and convey some of the more pertinent and vital information in any of the videos that I create, hopefully. All right, so now in the bottom line final case analysis, when you get down to the nitty-gritty as to whether or not anything makes any form or sort of difference in all of these numbers and relationship ratios ad addendum, I know this was not too simple to see. Excuse me, going back to this. The numbers and the names weren't showing quite as well as I had expected on the playback, but getting the ideas of the different misinformation and information is part of what I am doing in these productions. As haphazardly as it is being done, I'm showing you the information, the different types of products that can be made, and then the comparative analysis over the years. Hopefully you'll be able to see this better here with production output, and then investments versus returns in all of these different areas. So this is a part of what I'm covering. It just seems easy and simple enough for a person with a lot of land to just go out and create hemp on the land. And and that's part of what I want to do as well here, is to show you how simple that is also. And then, of course, what's being done in our state legislature, and my inability to operate this program at this moment. So thank you for joining this haphazard production. I will scroll up and down and have no control over my screen at the end of this particular production. on the different avenues of hemp. And I would like to cover this, the creation of fiber and fabric, a bit more, so I may before the end of this particular video. Hopefully, without all these incessantly spinning wheels, my productions hopefully will get better as time goes on. So, I wanted to bring that up, and also to advertise Mama got a tractor. And she's got, I'm not sure, just under 1,000 subscribers. So let's get her those last few to get her done and start making those trillions of dollars through YouTube production. Stop on down to your YouTube manufacturer and pick up a big stack of YouTube. Here in this particular video, we have hemp processing. And this is a mainstream video put out here. And the House Committee approves federal bill put out by CNBC. And of course, I don't have a prescription to CNBC. I suppose I should get one. It's got 200 trillion subscribers now and gets paid an average of $10 billion a week. All right, so in the mainstream, how do you say, propaganda push, you might say, the House Judiciary Committee just passed a bill that could legalize marijuana on the federal level. That could? What? It could? Oh. We interrupt this program to bring you a short message from the State Lottery Commission, letting you know and reminding every American that today you could win the lottery. Have a nice day and play the state lottery, because you could win. Well, that's just fantastic that it could. And it would incentivize. Now, this guy here, he is just one hammer time kind of dude. I like to see him do some rap songs. Gerald Nadler, and he's a Democrat in New York. Of course, it's a Democrat. We all want Democrats to be smoking weed and acting whack job. But in the same respect, you know, it's a $1 trillion economy that, you know, Democrat, Republican, whatever. You know, if you're, you know, they both love money. And while marijuana, there are people sitting in prisons for marijuana offenses today. I shouldn't laugh. Let's go with over 40 million. I think it was 40 million like 17 years ago for marijuana offenses. So exactly how do you say, oops, sorry about that. We made a bit of a mistake. Face second-class citizenship when they re-enter society. They're denied the right to vote. They struggle to find meaningful work because of this tarnishment upon their... And look at her smirk. What are you smirking about? It's time we righted the wrong, of course. However, I don't push Republican, Democrat. It's not about that. It's about this. It's about the... aside from beneficial profits, products and profits, for individuals statewide, all of the taxes and revenue they can collect. They being, you know, just, it's a huge benefit for every single body, for everyone. And that's no bull. So anyway, I just wanted to show a little bit of the other side and a little bit of this guy's face, because who doesn't love Gerald Nadler? I think we should do some pop videos on this guy. And also, let's see, I just had... That is so strange. All right. So, right. And so, as a matter of, well, I might as fact. And what we're dealing with here and talking about in the essential aggravation of things are the cannabinoids that are, no, actually, agronomy. Now, as we look through my past history here, just briefly, I should say that the stone farm tillage, essentially, you know, tilling up the soil, as in this particular video right here. These are parts of the process, and there are different, so many different parts of so many different processes. Like, for instance, this is a gravity separator. Of course, this would be used to separate. It has an airflow that comes from beneath, pushing air up, and it has an angle of approach, or an angle where, you know, it can be tilted in one direction, and the airflow can be adjusted from beneath. And so in this way, separation doth occur. Your heavier material drops out up above, and your lighter material, and it can be angled. The pitch and also the vibration can be set, and also the airflow from beneath can be set in the separation of different types of particles. A particle separator. And so this would be used, of course, in separating seeds. You adjust the tilt angle, and these are the fine-tuning details of the Oliver machine, adjusting the eccentric speed. I suppose that would be the how it vibrates. And it's a great big old vibrator. And I wouldn't want to sit on it. Probably cost a boatload of money. However, the deck is adjusted, and the speed of agitation, I suppose that's what it is, eccentric. And I am a bit eccentric, but this is eccentric speed. And so speed, angle, airflow all makes a difference in how well things are separated, particles are separated. And then once the particles hit the bottom line, what do? Of course, I hope to realize that the videos that I'm creating here, as one surveys the information and looks at this machinery, you realize that you could actually put one of these together, not to undercut the Oliver Manufacturing Company to any degree, but looking at the basic fundamentals of details and the gravity separator, I'm going to design a few of these. Why not? It's all in dealing with all of the different types of processing. People just get so hung up on the CBD in itself when there are a great variety of inventions that need to be created. I'm going to be doing that, or at least designing what I can design that's going to be, it's going to be efficacious, efficient in the process, of whatever process that may be. And so, wow. All right, just getting past a few of these details, and we are going to be dealing with a lot more than just a little bit of gravity separation. But let's get out there and build one. Who's with me? I'm going to design 10 of these. 10 of them. One for midgets and one for giants. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said midget. Smaller individuals, pixies. All right, pixies and elves. There we go. All right. So these are all of the processing. No, actually, it's not all of anything. It's just little bits and pieces of a massive differences of things to do. For instance, the hempcrete processing in itself. Here we have hempcrete processing, and this is an easy link. You just put that in and check it out on YouTube. And there are a variety of ways to learn how to make your own hempcrete, and keeping in line and standard with the haphazard production, we have cannabis news and lifestyle. I will subscribe and play a bit of this how to make hempcrete and benefits of hempcrete. It has music, and so I may have to drop the music because of copyright infringement. But I will show a little bit of this, and I can put in a little bit of music. No.
Need about a bucket and a half of the dry hemp shiv, which is the aggregate in hempcrete, and then we're going to need some hempcrete binder, which is this stuff. There's 4 or 5 different kinds available. This is a natural hydraulic lime, a very strong hydraulic lime from the south of France. And it's so quick setting that we're going to have to put a retarder with it. And this is just food grade citric acid powder. So we're going to shake some of that in there. And then just mix that in dry before we wet it up. Cement is basically lime with other minerals added to it. In fact, this is a very hydraulic lime which comes from a class called natural cements. And Portland cement, which is what you're talking about, is really just a formulated version of this.
But it uses a lot of energy.
It uses more energy in the production process, yeah. And because this is quite quick setting, but because Portland cement is even harder and stronger and quicker setting, it doesn't reabsorb very much
of the CO2 that was given off when you burnt the lime. So it's in two senses. It's more energy intensive in the production process, and it doesn't reabsorb CO2 as it's setting, whereas limes, to varying degrees, different kinds of limes will reabsorb CO2. So we're just going to mix equal quantities of the hempcrete binder and water so that we get a nice, we call it a slurry, and we make sure that the binder has got all of the water that it needs to take a set. And then you're going to help me by throwing the hemp in a little at a time while I mix it with a whisk. Put the water in, lime, just watch out for the dust. So just mixing this first to like a smooth slurry. Keep going. That'll do. I'm going to compress like I'm making a snowball and compress a big ball of it, and then we're going to just make it as tight as we can, and then I'm just going to tap it. It should just break into a couple of pieces quite cleanly, like that. Yeah. So that shows us that the hempcrete's pulling together and it's just about ready to use. I would say that's slightly on the wet side, but it'll do for purposes of this. So this would be a structural timber frame of the building, which would all be constructed first, including the roof. And in this case, we've already got a skin of precast hempcrete blocks tied to the inside face of the wall. So that is also almost forming a permanent shuttering that we're going to cast our wet hempcrete against. And the reason for that is, when you wet cast hempcrete on site, there's a drying time, about 6 to 8 weeks, which is not too bad in the summer months. But if you use precast hempcrete for the inside skin, then that means that as soon as the windows are in, you can move in, plaster the inside, start fitting it out, living in it. And the cast hempcrete that you've got to dry is now only 2/3 of the thickness, and it's on the outside of the building where the sun and the wind are going to help it dry. So we literally tipping in enough hempcrete for a sort of 4 to 6 inch layer at a time. And the reason for that is we don't want to have too much in, because when you compact it, it won't compact properly at the bottom. Just watch your eyes a minute. So all we're doing is spreading it out level in the void, like this, and then really just giving it a firm pat down with your hand. That's all the compaction that it needs. Because if you compress it too much, and you'll see videos on the internet of people with sticks banging it in, what you're doing then is you're pushing all the air out of it, which is where you get the insulation from. You're also making it more expensive because you're putting more material in to fill up the wall, and also because you crush all the holes and channels in the material, it takes longer for it to dry, because that's how the moisture moves out of the building. It's inflammable. So again, if you look on YouTube, you'll see videos of people with a blowtorch against a hempcrete block, dry hempcrete block, and you can leave the blowtorch on it for half an hour, and at the end of it you'll have a very small area of charred hempcrete that you can scratch away. But it doesn't catch fire, it doesn't really heat up, so if you put your hand on the back of that block after half an hour, you don't feel any heat. And because there's no other chemical treatment, there's no sort of worry about toxicity and things off-gassing when in response to heat. When you're creating moisture inside by cooking or washing or breathing, instead of getting a sort of sheen of condensation on the wall, the hempcrete will absorb that moisture in, and then when the relative humidity drops inside, it releases it out again. So it's passively regulating the humidity inside the building. It's got quite an open structure of air inside the hempcrete, but also the microscopic pores, the cell structure of the hemp plant is lots of like little bubbles, and it's really hydrophilic. So because it's the stalk of the plant, and it's all about getting the moisture transfer up into this tall plant from the ground. So what it does naturally is it absorbs moisture in which condenses in the cells of the hemp plant and then just breathes out again. And that again is part of the dynamic thermal performance of the wall, because each time there's a state change where gas turns to water and then water turns back to water vapor.
Make hempcrete.
So what we're going to need about 1.5 buckets of the dry hemp shiv, which is the aggregate in hempcrete, and then we're going to need some hempcrete binder, which is this stuff. There's 4 or 5 different kinds available. This is a natural hydraulic lime,
a natural hydraulic lime. And so looking into the aspects and details of the production and manufacturing, and this gentleman puts out some good information. What you just saw here is just a small part of his channel, which I will once again put the link in my description and hopefully add to Cannabis News and Lifestyles subscriber base for obvious reasons. All right, let's keep going with this. There's a bit of a thing. Industrial hemp processing. And now this is this video right here is dealing with taking it from the raw fiber process, and it just actually just shows. It doesn't really say anything. It just has footage after footage of how hemp is rolled up, baled out, and handled. If I turn the volume up on this, you don't really have anything but the sounds of the machinery. And you see that's just showing the flow as it comes out of this machine and goes through different processing machines from this really super coarse fiber. And essentially it just keeps being rollered and run over and over, once again, in streams. And the more that this is done, the more that it is pulled together, and also doesn't really seem to have any combs or combing. It's just rollers and rollering type things, and then layers. It's rollered down to layer out, and these machines are created here. This is a barrel, and it's rolling back and forth within the barrels, and then it's taken once again from the barrels that it was rollered into and run through rollers once again. And this continues on, as I can show you here and speed things up. She puts it in barrels, and those are tampers, the things that she's dropping in there. It just pushes down on the product, is basically what it does, and then she switches barrels. And then as it comes out, these tampers will, as the barrel fills up, they go up and down and push down on the product that is being rollered once again with little brushes. They're just little over brushes, as you can see. And then those tampers press down on the product. So as I mentioned, this is all just machinery in the background, but you can see it's just over and over again, a repetitive process of rollering and brushing. You see the brush very lightly, and the thread or fiber seems to meld with itself just fine. You have a difference here in the before and the after of just being rollered over and over again. Now this is something I wouldn't mind finding out a lot more about in the finishing processes of what separators are used, what tension is used, what pressures are used between the rollers, and and it seems to be a fiber that actually melds itself together by being pulled over and over and rollered over and over again, becoming more and more refined. And this is where that came from, right here. So I'm glad I was able to share that little bit. Let's get on to another part of this processing detail. And so once again, it's time to sign off from Smarter Farming. Farmers smarting, farmers farting, smarmers farting. And so once again, I have an abrupt ending to an otherwise dismal video. I hope you learned something during this video. And this isn't the end of it. This is just the beginning. I'm just getting warmed up. So like, comment, and subscribe. Give me some ideas. And you know what? I got plenty of ideas on my own. And so I will be implementing and conveying those as I traverse the country, creating new lives for myself and others. And if I see any mud fossils, or I see any mud flood evidence, or other anomalies like the sun glaring through a lens, sort of a thing, I will tape, video, and otherwise expose that which I find, because that's my job in helping to do what this song conveys. However, I'm not going to leave it up to you. So like, comment, and subscribe, and I will return. Adios, amigos. So, like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to share. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for playing. Love ya.